There's a lot of news going on today out of Pennsylvania with the SAF case dealing with firearms in cars. There's a case out of Florida as well, but we're not going to talk about any of that today. We are going to talk about something more important, and that is the presidential election and Kamala Harris and her stance on guns. What's up, Wolverines? We're going to start this video out with a story time. During the last presidential election cycle, I got banned from Facebook. I'm going to tell you why, and it just might surprise you or it might not. I don't know. So, during the last election cycle, there was an article put out by Rachel Malone that stated that Kamala Harris does not believe in the Second Amendment. The AFP, which was a trusted Facebook partner, marked that as false, and they stated that Kamala Harris supported the Second Amendment. Now, I might not be the smartest tool in the shed, but I was pretty sure that Kamala Harris does not like guns, and she definitely does not support the Second Amendment. So I started doing a little bit of research, and I looked into the AFP and their connection with Facebook. It turned out the AFP was connected to the French government. It's basically their version of PBS, but for written stuff. So I knew that that was foreign election interference, and also I knew that Kamala Harris does not believe in the Second Amendment, and I'll tell you why in a second. But I went to war, and I got it reversed. I got AFP kicked off, and the false label was removed. But Facebook decided to ban my personal account at the time, which was ridiculous. One of the things that I used as evidence was an amicus brief that she wrote during the Heller case, and we're going to get into that in a second, but I posted that without any context, and AFP marked that as false. This all led to an FEC investigation, which was dropped after Biden came into office. They were being investigated because Facebook worked with a foreign country to mark things that were factually correct as false because it made their candidate of choice look bad. So in the end, I lost my Facebook account, but it was worth it. When they did kill my Facebook account, it was suspended for life without the possibility of an appeal, and I never really did get an exact reason. They just said, you're out of here. I did reach out to Facebook before that and wrote an article and sent it to Facebook, so I'm pretty sure that's probably what happened, and that caused a lot of backlash in Congress and other places as well. So they were a little bit pissed off at me. But hey, I will take it. The reason why I'm telling you this is I think that the mainstream media is going to cover up for Harris once again. We are already seeing this in the whole entire Palestinian fundraising. If you don't know, Harris was sending out tweets from her official X account stating that she was raising money for Palestinian protesters that were locked up for vandalism and causing damage and rioting and everything else. The media is marking that as false now, even though it is verifiably true. I am sure that the mainstream media is going to try to mark this as false as well, but I have receipts, and the receipts are from a pretty good source, and that is Kamala Harris herself. In January of 2008, she signed on to an amicus brief in the Heller case. Not only did she sign on to the amicus brief in the Heller case, she was one of the people that penned it. And her arguments against Heller, because she sided with DC, was that there is no individual right to bear arms. She tried to argue, unsuccessfully, thank God, that the Second Amendment only applies to the military. Does not apply to you. It does not apply to me. According to her, the people of the United States, the citizens of the United States, do not have the right to bear arms. Only the military does. And that brings up a lot of questions. Why would the government grant themselves a right that they already had? It doesn't make any sense. She also tried to argue that the Second Amendment only applies to the federal government. It cannot apply to laws passed by states or localities. Basically, she is saying that states are free to pass whatever they want and they are not restricted by the Second Amendment, which we all know is BS because if you look at the 14th Amendment, the 14th Amendment takes the Bill of Rights, which the Second Amendment is a part of, and applies it to the states. But they try to argue that the Second Amendment only applies to the federal government and not the states. So the states can pass whatever gun law they want, and it is untouchable by the Second Amendment. But you don't have to take my word for it. Let's read what was written. For nearly 70 years, courts have constantly sustained criminal firearm laws against Second Amendment challenges by holding that, inter alia, the Second Amendment provides only a militia-related right to bear arms. The Second Amendment does not apply to legislation passed by state or local governments, and the restrictions bear a reasonable relationship to protecting public safety and thus not violates a personal constitutional right. Do you see what I'm saying? She said that it only applies to the military and the Second Amendment does not apply to states or localities, which is absolutely false. Now, you can say, well, maybe that's what Madison meant, but Madison, who wrote the Second Amendment, obviously didn't mean that, so it's pitting her against American history. In fact, let's read what Madison said. Besides the advantage of being armed, which Americans possess over the people of almost every other nation, notwithstanding the military establishments in several kingdoms of Europe, which are carried as far as the public resources will bear, the governments are afraid to trust the people with arms. Basically, we can see from this one quote here that Madison, who wrote the Second Amendment, believed in the individual right to bear arms. And we know that because he talks about how Americans have that right over other places, especially in Europe, where he states that the military over there has rights, but the people do not. So right there, that torpedoes their argument that it's only a military right, because obviously Madison there is talking about the people and not the military, because he brings up that certain countries have arms in their military, and he specifically was talking about arms for the people. That should be cut and dry right there. Now you might be saying maybe she doesn't believe that the Second Amendment gives you the right to keep and bear arms, but she surely would not back a handgun ban. Well, let's go ahead and read another part of that amicus brief and see where she stands on that. States and local governments have continued to modify criminal gun laws, tailoring them to meet the specific needs of each jurisdiction. For example, many states have enacted enhanced criminal charges and penalties for felonies if the perpetrator possesses a firearm during the commission of those crimes. In addition, a number of states and local governments have determined to protect public safety, certain exceptionally dangerous firearms, including assault weapons, assault pistols, and handguns, should be banned altogether. And some states have enacted an outright ban on carrying concealed weapons. Now, there you go. She considers handguns exceptionally dangerous, and she is backing bans of handguns. So you cannot say that she's not going to go after handguns because she wants to go after handguns. The public safety thing was thrown out during the Bruin thing. The two-step test, intermediate scrutiny, interest balancing is done and over with thanks to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is our firewall against Kamala Harris and her liberal ilk. But that doesn't save us exactly. Kamala Harris is on record saying that she wants to expand the Supreme Court. She wants to expand the Supreme Court to tear down our firewall. She wants to put on a bench more extremist liberal judges to curtail our rights, especially our gun rights. So if she gets elected, you can guarantee that she is going to push to expand the Supreme Court. to make it a liberal majority that is going to attack our gun rights. We're going to see our gun rights be stripped away. Every single election, people say this is the most important election of our lifetime. But this time, that actually might be the reality of the situation. This might be the most important election of our lifetime. I do not like Trump. I'm not a Trump guy, but something has to give. I hate to be the person that votes between the lesser of two evils, but with one evil being so anti freedom, anti liberty, anti American, you might have to vote. You might have to hold your nose and vote this year. Remember, Kamala Harris's dad was a Marxist. I'm not saying that as, oh, he had some left leaning views. He was literally a Marxist. And if you don't think Kamala Harris got the Marxist teachings from her dad, I don't know what to tell you, but she is definitely a Marxist. So you need to get out there and vote. We need to protect this country against Kamala Harris and the extremist, anti gun, liberal side. So do me a favor and vote, because this election might come down to one or two votes. Who knows? We'll have to see. But remember, if you don't like Kamala Harris, the main thing you should do is sub to the channel and leave a comment. Just kidding. But no, vote. All right, guys, that is it. My name is John Crump. I cover 2A issues all the time and report on stuff like this. This is John Crump News, my YouTube channel. And with that, we're going to get out of here. Have a happy weekend. I'm going to go see Deadpool now. So stay ever vigilant, stay ever free, keeping the fight. I'm out of here. Wolverines.